Oh, yeah. Welcome. Have you ever wondered what your purpose is, why we're here? I thought I was important, but in reality, I'm just a speck in a vast universe, a speck of sand in a vast universe. Either I'm a speck of sand in a desert or a speck of sand on the beach. But I don't know about you, but I'd rather be on the beach. But I believe we're all born into the desert, and it's our life's journey, our mission to find our way to the beach. And I believe the way we find our way to the beach is through enlightenment. And my name's John Schmitz, and I'm here to share my story of enlightenment with you this evening. But first, I want to talk about the definition of enlightenment. And in the Enlightenment era was the Age of Enlightenment, or the Age of Reason, which was after the Dark Ages. I don't know how that works out, but it is a time when philosophers such as Blaise Pascal had a theory of Pascal's wager. And that is, if you're going to bet that God exists, you might as well bet that he does, because what do you have to lose if he doesn't? But I believe it goes on beyond belief. It has to go to purpose. So that question is really needs more to it. So now I'm going to share my story of my journey to enlightenment. I was born here on the south side of Indy, had a loving family, mom and dad, 2 mean sisters, dog, all that. Lived in a great neighborhood, cool friends, went to high school, went off to college, graduated, got out of college, got a job working for some companies. Around 1990, I decided I could do this myself and started my own business. And about that time, too, I met a girl, and we got married, and off to the races we go. Successful business, 4 kids. 15 years later, where kids are getting bigger, I had this urge to build a subdivision. I'd been a contractor, mason contractor. I'd built houses. So I can do this subdivision thing. I just need to find the right ground. One day I pull out of the house, and I'm going by this farm, and it's an 80-acre farm, and I see it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that if I ever comes up for sale, I want to take a shot at that. So I pull out, I see it for sale, and I would just say, please God, please let me build a subdivision. I want to build this subdivision, please, please, please. A year goes by and it still doesn't sell. So one day I think, well, they're probably ready to sell it because it's been on the market for a year. So, I call up the realtor and we make it work out. I brought a bunch of money to do this. And, everything went well. I worked daylight to dark. We got things done. And I don't know if you all remember 2008. Did anybody? Some people call that a recession. I call it a depression because it didn't work out well for me. That's about the time I got the lots ready to go for this beautiful subdivision. And it's like, I remember one of the first things I learned about prayer is be specific in your prayer. I prayed for the subdivision. I just forgot to pray for profitability. So let's put it this way. 2008 was not a banner year. I remember, that summer sitting in church, and it was before robocalls from your lenders would come. I had 14 messages on my phone from the bank wanting some money. And, later on that year, I'm on a masonry job because we couldn't find any work. I mean, it wasn't just the subdivision, but there was hardly any construction work. Sitting on the north side on a job, I had $5 in my pocket. And I'm like, am I going to eat today or am I going to get home? Now, I'm a guy that I had $1 million. I had millions, and I had tons of money. But now I'm facing this ultimate failure. And I've succeeded in everything I've done in life so far. I mean, just win, 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 win. And now I'm sitting here going, this is a tremendous failure. So I found myself at a crossroads. And it was one of those times where, what am I going to do? I had some friends that were just drinking and trying to drink and other that are just losing it. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that. I still had a little bit of optimism in me. So I found myself in a Bible study with about 20 other guys that were developers, mortgage brokers, other people that were having issues with their business. And we had a guy named John Deal. He was an attorney, and his premise was, all the law you need is in the Bible. So if somebody was to say they had a legal issue, he could find a Bible relation to it. And one of the things I remember that got me going was he said, okay, what you do is you read the Bible just as quick as you can all the way through, and then you go back and then you pick out parts that was interesting to you. And I'm like, well, I've read the Bible. I mean, I've been at church, I've been an elder, I've been a camp counselor, I've been all these things at church. What do I need to do that for? But I did it. And I remember it was about Christmas time. I didn't have anything else to do most of the day, so I pretty much read the Bible all day. And around Christmas time, I was, headed past the Leviticus with all the names and numbers and all that. And I was like, okay, I got all this. But I get around the turn of this, around January 1st, I remember this is when, now be careful, this is when I have my enlightenment moment. I'm reading Ecclesiastes. And, I would suggest that you should read Ecclesiastes as early in life as you can, because wait until you're 50, it's a little different game. So I remember reading some wise words from King Solomon, the richest man in history, but he had a little regrets, and he said, chasing riches is like grasping oil or chasing the wind. And I'm like, that's good to know now. I go on, I keep reading, and it's just like, this moment was just like everything stood still, and all these scriptures just stood out to me. And I remember reading one of the scriptures in Corinthians about using our gifts. And I've worked on a lot of gifts in my life. And I have gifts, and I'm just still sort of wondering why did I fail? Why was this happening? And I remember reading Corinthians 12, where it talks about the body of Christ. The eye is not an ear, the nose is not a foot. And I just put my hands up and I said, God, why do I have to be the ass? I don't know what you're laughing about. There's two cheeks. And I know you all have been in an organization where somebody's been the appendix and they don't do anything. So, the application of these scriptures are the start of out of the pit. That enlightenment is one thing. But what we really need to do to recognize is the fact that we need to do something. We can't just be enlightened and then just sit on our hands and wait. We have to do something. So I'm thinking, okay, what do you want me to do? So I had learned that through prayer and fasting, and the correct way to pray, be more specific. I started thinking, after my new revelations of reading the scriptures and having this great understanding, that I need to be a preacher. So I started my fasting, my process, and the message came back. And God said, you know what? I don't think you need to go back and get a master's of divinity. I'll tell you what, you learn about people, I'll teach you scripture. So in 2012, I graduated with a master's degree in psychology. And I realized during that time period that my marriage was pretty much a train wreck. It was strained before, but the financial burden and the downhill slide of the bankruptcy just sort of made things worse, made them very apparent. So I'm like, okay, another fail. This enlightenment stuff's really great so far. But so I'm like minding my own business, and I'm like, I decided, well, it'd be nice to have some new friends or whatever. So I got on Match.com. I'm thinking I'm just going to go on there for friends or whatever. So I'm on there like the first week. And of course, I meet this woman. The first one I met, it was a height requirement thing. She was above 5'8". And I'm thinking, the psychologist in me is saying, well, two-thirds of rebound relationships fail. But the optimist was saying that 1/3 is successful. So it happened to be her she'd been on for 4 years, and this was her last week. It was my first week. And so we started talking, and things progressed. And I was like, okay, God, I want to be specific in my prayer here. I don't want to be getting into another thing, and I don't want that. So we started talking. We realized that, it took a very short time to realize that we were supposed to be together. And, when God has something for you, fighting it you may end up smelling like a fish. because Jonah fought that, and he had to spend 3 days in a whale. And I don't want to smell like a fish, so I said, okay, God, I got this. I'm gonna listen. And God said, you know what? You went through all this stuff because I have a purpose for you in life. It's going to be more than what you are going to do, and you weren't going to do that with a subdivision, with the relationship you had. So we got together, we got married, and we both knew that God had something bigger for us to do. So after church, came up with this plan about how we were going to maybe move into a rundown neighborhood and fix up our house and help everybody else in the neighborhood fix up their houses. So we do that after church. We drive around, and we noticed that there was abandoned buildings. And so word got out to some of our friends that we were looking for something like this to move into a community and help out and do something. So a friend of ours said, hey, there's a building in Mars Hill. And I'm like, I grew up on the south side. There's two places you don't go, Mars Hill and Hallville. You don't go there. So I had said, okay, I'm going to go look at this thing, and I got a price, and if it goes to that, it's. So I go, and my top number is where the bidding stopped, and we bought a building. And we got into the neighborhood, and we decided that we needed to find out what that neighborhood wanted. And the neighborhood had a community center, had 22 churches, had all these things, and it came out that we needed to build an art center, possibly with activities. And during that process, that was about 4 years ago, during that process, we had other friends say, hey, you know what, you can't not live in a place where you serve. So we ended up moving to Mars Hill, and we love it. And I was never in a million years would be telling you that I would be living in a house in Mars Hill with an art center. It's one of those things where it's one of those deals like, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, because it's going to change if you stick around long enough, you're obedient. But, I don't want to put my wife on the spot, but she's right here in the front row. But, we are a pretty decent team. It's just one of those deals where when you get enlightened, you need to realize it, and then you need to do something. But I want to leave you with a bad dad joke, because that truly is one of my gifts. I'm not just the ass, okay? All right. Which apartment did Shakespeare's girlfriend live in? It was either to be or not to be. Thank you.